Hey, how's it going, guys? Blue Tempest here, and welcome back to another video. So for today's video, we are going to be taking a look at every single manga series that I have dropped. It's going to be a really interesting video, and it's one that I've been wanting to do for a while, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you do, then make sure to leave a like on this video, and also if you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing for more manga content. All of my social media accounts are going to be linked down below in the description box, and I have also left the link to my anime list account down below. I try to keep my manga list on there up to date at all times, so you guys can actually see what I dropped before I make a video like this. If you guys follow me on there, you guys will probably already know that I have dropped all of these series, because I am going to be going down the list of my dropped manga series on my anime list. So yes, definitely follow me on there if you haven't yet. I am going to be going in alphabetical order because that's just the way that it's organized on Mal. So without further ado, let's just get into this video as we have a lot of manga to talk about. So first off here, in my dropped manga, we do have Act Age. So Act Age is a series that I dropped because while yes, the mangaka or the series is pretty much canceled. The mangaka did some very despicable things, some very terrible things, and is not a great person at all. The artist, however, for the series, I do feel really bad for, because, you know, the art for Act Age is really interesting. I do like the art, and it just sucks that, you know, that series was gaining momentum in Shonen Jump, and the author just had to be a terrible human being. But hopefully the artist, you know, can come back and work with a different author. But Act Age, you know, I couldn't really get into it. I did have the first 2 volumes physically, and I decided to just kind of sell them because, you know, after reading the first volume, I wasn't hooked enough for me to, you know, keep going with it. So I just kind of decided, you know what, let me just drop it. It's already hard as it is to, you know, support a series like this because of the author, but I just also wasn't really interested in, you know, the series itself. All right, so next up here we do have Attack on Titan Before the Fall. You know, I can kind of appreciate this manga for being a gateway manga for me, in terms of, you know, getting into reading manga and stuff like that, because this was one of the first manga series that I ever got into, that I ever bought. And the reason for that is because at the time, as an anime only watcher, I kind of had no desire to read manga if they already had an anime, because I was just into anime at the time. But Before the Fall was not available in an anime format, and it is directly related to a series that I absolutely loved. So that is why I picked up the first volume of Attack on Titan Before the Fall before I was ever even into collecting manga. And, you know, I soon realized that spin-offs are rarely ever as good as the main series. And that is definitely the case when it comes to Attack on Titan Before the Fall, because this is nowhere even close to as good as the main series. Honestly, this kind of just reads like a bit of fan fiction, and yeah, I don't think any of this is really canon to the main story, and it honestly has nothing to do with it. So yeah, I ended up dropping the series, but, you know, because I am such a big fan of Attack on Titan, I could see myself coming back to Before the Fall at some point in the future. But moving on, we have Chained Soldier. This is one that recently came out with the first volume, and, you know, the art is there. But this series, it just has one of the most bland and forgettable main characters, one of the most painful main characters in a manga series that I have ever read. Yeah, this was just kind of cringe when it comes to, you know, the main character's aspirations, his motivations. While I think that the concept is kind of cool in certain senses, I just wasn't hooked on the series from the first volume. But because I only read the first volume, you know, this is something that I could see myself trying out again in the future. I know that there's an anime coming out at some point, so maybe I'll try it out with the anime, because I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world. And like I said, the art was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, the art was really good for this series, and I did like that aspect of the series. But yeah, I dropped it because, you know, I have a lot of ongoing series that I'm collecting, and this one just kind of didn't make the cut. So moving on, this is one that is going to maybe get me a lot of heat because a lot of you guys love this series. A lot of people are huge fans of the series, and you know, it is really highly praised in the community. And the series in question is Classroom of the Elite, the light novel. Now, I am a manga reader for a reason. You know, as you guys can see, I have a huge manga collection, and the reason for that is because when I read, I like reading with the pictures. I like having that kind of visual because, you know, I don't have a lot of brain cells. The Classroom of the Elite, you know, light novel, you know, I read it. I thought it was okay. I liked the first light novel, but it wasn't anything that really blew me away. And you know, you get these, you know, Classroom of the Elite fans that are like, oh, come on, just wait, volume 7's crazy, like, just read it, like, volume 4 gets really good. Like, no, I'm not gonna read like 7 books for it to get good. Like, it took me a long time to read the first volume of Classroom of the Elite. I could have read like maybe 5 or even more volumes of manga in the span of time that it took me to read 1 volume of the Classroom of the Elite light novel, which I honestly, like I said, did not really find that intriguing or interesting. You know, this is a series that I could maybe see myself getting back into, maybe with the anime, if you guys think the anime is good. I don't know. I just couldn't really get into it, and I don't have the time for it right now. So that is why I dropped Classroom of the Elite. I'm sorry. Hopefully you guys don't hate me for that. Oh, and I do want to say that I did try out the first volume of the manga for Classroom of the Elite, and I dropped it as well because it was even worse than the light novel. So yeah. All right, so next up here we have the Cowboy Bebop manga. Now this one is another case of a series that I really love with the anime, and me wanting to get into a spin-off with the manga early on. And yeah, I mean, you know, Cowboy Bebop needs no introduction. It is a classic, and you know, sometimes, you know, it may be harder to get into because of its episodic nature, especially with how, you know, anime series are set up nowadays. But Cowboy Bebop is undeniably a classic anime. But this manga, on the other hand, man, this was one of the most forgettable manga I've ever read in my life. So yeah, after the first volume, I just had to drop it. It was just so uninteresting, nothing like the original anime series. And also, you know, I thought the art was and I kind of thought that the plot and story was just super boring. So yeah, moving on, we have Fly Me to the Moon. Now this one is one that I did like. You know, it's not a bad series. I do think that, you know, the romance aspect is kind of cute. There is a little bit of a mystery aspect to the series, which I do like. But, you know, something about the series, I just dropped it. I gave it a decent chance with 4 volumes, but I did drop it because I felt like there are other rom-com series that I have in my collection that I overall just prefer to Fly Me to the Moon. Series such as, you know, My Dress Up Darling, that is an ongoing rom-com series that I am continuing, but I had to make the cut for Fly Me to the Moon just because, you know, it wasn't anything too special. It wasn't anything crazy for me, so that is why I dropped it. So next up is a series that you guys also might be mad at me for, but that is GTO, aka Great Teacher Onizuka. Now this series I read the first volume for, and you know, I think that there are a lot of aspects I liked about it. I do love, you know, that kind of classic 90s vibe, and I do like, you know, like the artwork. I think the artwork is fantastic, and I think it's interesting enough. But on the other hand, there are a lot of aspects to this series that I just did not really enjoy, such as some of the things in this manga not having aged very well. You know, you have the main character who is an adult, you know, who is crushing on high school girls, and then you have you know, all these, you know, adult teacher characters that are also, you know, just kind of sus and, you know, have like relationships with high school girls and stuff like that. I don't know, that part of the story I did not really enjoy. I thought it aged pretty badly, but this manga series is very highly acclaimed, and I did want to, continue reading it. But the main reason why I, dropped this series has nothing to do with the manga itself. It's because of the series being out of print, and this was one that I was trying to collect, and I just kind of gave up because it's almost borderline impossible to collect this series in general. Also, I do want to say that the Tokyo Pop translation here and just the printing quality and stuff like that, it's not the best, and so like it's hard for me to justify putting that much money into these volumes that are just not great quality. The translations aren't that good. They are older translations, and then there's some moments in the manga itself where the text is super tiny. I have to like squint my eyes to be able to actually read it, and I don't know if that has to do with the manga itself or the translation team, but yeah, I don't know, it just wasn't worth me collecting. But if this gets reprinted in the future, then I'll definitely pick it up and I'll give it another chance. So that is my thoughts on GTO. Next up we have Hide and Closer. I'm just gonna kind of try to go through these kind of fast at this point because we have just a ton of series to talk about. But Hide and Closer is the next one. This one, it's just a generic battle shonen. That's all there is to it. Nothing special. That's why I dropped it after the first volume. Next one, Kimono Jihen. This one is a newer releasing one here in the West. And I read the first volume, and I thought it was good, but it wasn't anything that I haven't seen before. And also I just have a bunch of other battle shonen series that I'm collecting, so this was one that I think I may give another shot in the future. Especially if you guys start reading it and tell me that it gets better as the more volumes that come out. I might end up picking it up again at some point, but for now I just have too many other ongoing series. And then next up, Kiruru Kill Me. It's cool. I like some of the aspects of the series, but I just feel like, again, I just have too many ongoing things, and this one wasn't special enough for me to keep it. The next one is a very controversial one, Komi Can't Communicate. And the reason why this one's controversial for me, and if you guys have heard me talk about the series, I think the series is trash. I don't know how this is as long as it is. This is one of those series that I see other people in the manga community, no shade to you guys, no shade to anybody, but this is one that I've seen people collect up to like volume 17, 18, 19, and people being like, yeah, it's all right. Like, I just can't bring myself to read 18 volumes of series and then in a reading log be like, yeah, it's all right. No, this is one that I read the first 3 volumes of. I gave it a decent chance, and I thought it was bad. I did not like it. There's way better romance manga out there, way better manga that deal with characters with certain disabilities and stuff like that, because Komi does have like a speech disorder, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've read this, but I do have a 3-volume rule video where me and my girlfriend kind of tear this manga apart, so definitely check out that video if you're interested in more in-depth thoughts. But yeah, just not a fan of the series, honestly. There's a lot of things that I don't think were handled well in Komi Can't Communicate. So moving on, we have Legal Drug. Now this is one by Clamp, which I want to get into some more Clamp series, but this one I couldn't really get into. This one I actually gave to my girlfriend for her to read. She might like it more than me. I didn't think it was the worst thing ever, but I just feel like it's not my cup of tea when it comes to manga. But, art was good and stuff like that. And, maybe my girlfriend will like it more than me. But the next one here is Orochi by Kazuo Umez. This is a newer releasing horror manga that it is a classic manga, but it is releasing for the first time over here in the West in these beautiful hardcovers. I picked it up, tried it out, and, it's okay. If you like Junji Ito, you'll like this. Kind of set up in, like, short stories revolving around this main character of Orochi, who is this like creepy girl. It's fine. I'm not the biggest fan of like straight up horror manga. I have enjoyed some of Junji Ito's works, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. So Kazuo Miz, I do want to try out the Drifting Classroom at some point, but Orochi, it just wasn't for me. So moving on, Parallel Paradise. Oh, this is a meme of a manga right here. This is whoo boy. Maybe you guys might remember me picking this up a long time ago, but this is one of the most, like, I don't even know how to describe this manga, but it is borderline, you guys know what I'm talking about, the H word, the H word when it comes to anime manga. This is borderline that, and it's not even that good. Honestly, there was something that happened in like the second or third volume. Let me see. I read 4 volumes of that, but there is something that happens where the enemies, the bad guys in this manga, they do something to the girls in this world that is really, honestly, just killed the vibe of this. Like, honestly, killed the vibe. I was trying to read this for a good time, and that killed the vibe. And then the manga just kind of kept getting ridiculous, and I don't know. It's just, it's not good. It's not good. Okay, so next one. This one is an interesting one. Platinum End. I read 12 out of the 14 volumes, and I sold my set. So the reason for that, it's because I read the first 12 volumes, because that was all that was out at the time. And then the release, it took like a year for us to get volume 14. And I kind of just moved on, started reading other things. I forgot about certain things that happened in Platinum End. But like, the more manga I read, the more I realized that Platinum End is not the best manga out there. And when a manga doesn't interest me enough for me to be that close to the ending and me like wanting to read the ending, I just felt like I had to drop it. Like, I really could care less of what happens at the end of this manga. And I actually talked to my friend who read it, and he really hated the ending. He told me about it. I know the gist of what happens, and yeah, the ending sounds terrible. So I'm kind of glad I didn't spend time wasted on reading those final 2 volumes. So it is what it is. But yeah, next, please put them on, Takaminesan. This was one of the craziest premises ever in manga for a rom-com. And you know what, we'll lump in this next one here as well, Pretty Face. Both of these I talked about in a previous video, and both of them, while they had some crazy premises, I just don't think they were executed that well. And I just couldn't get into it, honestly. Next up, Rent a Girlfriend. This is one of the biggest ones because I was a pretty big fan of the series when I first read it. It was around the time where I was first getting into manga, and I thought this was kind of unique. It was a drama, rom-com type of thing. 7 volumes, but I've heard nothing but terrible things about, what happens later on in the series. I found out some spoilers about like the main character and, his decisions and stuff like that, and, his thought process. And I just can't get down with that. I also can't get down with the fact that this manga is like over 20 something volumes in Japan, and apparently it goes like, the plot goes nowhere. There's no development with the romance. I just can't invest that much time into this series, so that's why I dropped it. Next one, Sundome. Now this one is an interesting one. This is one that I was recommended by watching some of the Prom G's videos, and also East Coast Manga, I believe, has collected this manga. I tried it out with the first 3 volumes. I kind of went into it thinking I was getting into another like Flowers of Evil type story, but no, this manga is just super weird, and not necessarily in the way that Flowers of Evil is weird. Like, Flowers of Evil actually has what I think is a deep message, and just it leaves you thinking, while Sundome is just really kind of like, for lack of a better term, really horny and weird. I don't know. Maybe you could describe a lot of Oshimi's manga as that, but there's something about Sundome that didn't quite sit right with me. Also, like, the side characters were just like really annoying and stuff. I don't know. It had comedy. I think it was trying to be more comedic, but it wasn't landing with me. So next up we have Tenjo Tenge. This was a pretty big one because I collected this entire series. I bought the whole set, and I only read 2 of the omnibuses, which equates to 4 volumes. And I dropped this and sold my set. Thankfully, I was able to, make up the money I had spent on it back. But Tenjo Tenge is a manga series that I did not really like. It didn't really sit well with me with how some of the female characters are treated in this manga. There is a sexual assault scene very, very early on that was honestly portrayed in a kind of fan servicey way, and that really turned me off from the series. But not only that, there's a lot of things that did not age well. There are some parts of the manga where it's kind of like homophobic and stuff like that. I don't know. It was a weird manga. I think the art is incredible. Oh Great's art is fantastic. And, you know, I do want to get into, you know, the Bakemonogatari adaptation from him at some point, because, you know, that is written by someone else, not him. But all of my interest in Air Gear kind of faded because of Tenjo Tenge. You know, it is what it is. Amazing art, but, you know, not a great story, in my opinion. Plus, the other aspects of the story I just didn't really find interesting or compelling. It just seemed kind of like a mess for me. Next one is That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Trinity in Tempest. Another spin-off manga. Dropped it because it's not as good as the original series. And I just kind of fell off of the series a bit in general, like the slime series. I watched the first season of the anime, loved it. My channel name is directly inspired by the slime anime because I was a big fan when I made my channel. But now, you know, I think it's cool. It's a good isekai. It's one of the better isekai series, and you know, I am willing to try out the manga or the light novels at some point in the future, but this spin-off was really not it. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing ever, honestly, but I just had more things that I wanted to check out. So we only have a few more series here to talk about. So the next one is The NPCs in This Village Sim Game Must Be Real. This one has an interesting premise, interesting concept, and interesting first volume, but not interesting enough for me to continue it. I thought it was a little bit of a generic type of manga, and I kind of realized, like, you know, at one point I was just collecting way too many things. Still am, but like, I just had to cut out some of the just skippable manga. So this was one of those, unfortunately. And yeah, I don't even know if anybody else has read this manga. It's a really random one I picked up on a whim, and it wasn't bad. I did enjoy part of it, but not enough to continue reading. And then the next one is an interesting one. It's The Witch and the Beast. I only read the first volume of this, and while it has been a while and I don't remember a lot about it, there is, you know, a little bit of hype surrounding the series in the manga collecting community. A lot of people really enjoy this. So it is one that I am considering trying out again in the future, because I mean, the artwork was fantastic, but the story, I wasn't really hooked from the first volume. Now this one I actually gave to my girlfriend, so she now has the first volume. She hasn't read it yet, but I gave it to her because I thought she might enjoy it more than me. But because she still has it, you know, if she reads it and she, you know, likes it or doesn't like it, either way, I am willing to read the first volume again, try it out again, and see if I want to actually continue reading it. But for now, I have dropped The Witch and the Beast. All right, so the final series on my list of dropped manga is going to be ZOM 100 Bucket List of the Dead. Now, I did read the first 4 volumes of the series, and this is one that I know that a lot of people do enjoy. And I enjoyed it myself a lot, actually, with the first 2 volumes. But after that, volumes 3 and 4 kind of went downhill for me, and my interest in this series in general just kind of went downhill with it. I think it is a fun series, you know, in the beginning. It's a really cool concept, and I think that the art is good. You know, it had some really interesting characters and stuff like that, but I just felt like the direction that it went after, you know, the second volume was not the direction that I kind of thought it would go. And it was also just a direction that in general I did not really enjoy. So that is why I dropped ZOM 100. I did do a 3-volume rule video on the series, and I recommended it at the time. And you know what, like I said, the first 3 volumes are fine. Volume 3, not as good as the first 2. But once I read volume 4 and I saw that, you know, the series was just kind of getting worse for me, I decided to go ahead and drop it because of the same reason for a lot of these is that I just don't have the space, the money, the time for these series, you know what I mean? Like, there are other ongoing series that I'm collecting that I enjoy way more. I have a limited amount of shelf space and I have to make sacrifices. And you know, Zom 100 was a pretty easy sacrifice for me to make. So that is why I dropped it. But with that, guys, that does it for all of the manga that I have dropped since I have started reading manga. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like I said, this is just my opinion and these are just my dropped manga, you know, so please don't take anything too personally when it comes to, you know, this list. If one of these series is one of your favorite manga series of all time, let me know down in the comments. I may give some of these series another chance if you guys let me know why I should give it another chance down below. So yeah, with that does it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.